All this is Dr. Mobeen Sayed from Drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So today what we'll do is this. We will have a quick chit chat here. In the description of the video, you have the link to Zoom as well. After this chit chat in a few minutes, maybe half an hour, we will then start the Zoom and we would do Qigong with Injen from Ireland and we would do chit chat as well. I might request a little early break from today. And if you are okay, if it's all right to have a day off tomorrow and we would meet again on Monday. Meanwhile, happy Good Friday to everyone and then happy advanced Easter as well. So hope you're doing good. Hope you're healthy and happy and safe. How do we start? What do we talk about in the chit chat? I'm sorry, I was planning to talk about diabetes today and tomorrow, but because of an event in the family, I could not prepare that well. So we can maybe discuss some questions and then do Qigong, and then maybe from Monday we start again. How about that? So William Goff says, I actually drank a Mountain Dew tonight and no pain. So hope it is resolving little by little. So good to know. I'm hoping that you're talking about your situation. Jim Maddox, Dr. Bean likes to talk. Absolutely, I love to talk with you. Yes. Chicks, my condolences, Dr. Bean. So thank you very much. And thank you very much to everyone who has been either commenting or sending messages for condolences. Thank you very much. Of course, there are some folks as well that were challenging me that I am lying somehow that someone died of COVID. They said they may have died of natural causes. And COVID doesn't exist and that, all that. So that my new policy, I just block such folks. I don't even spend mental cycles on them. Having said that, my wife's uncle that passed away, he was not a believer in COVID, and he was not even a believer when he got it, and he became sick at home to the point that his other family members had to bring him to hospital, and then in the COVID ward, then he passed away. The whole family now, the one that were with him, they are all COVID positive and going through COVID. His daughters that I talked about, they both are married. They were very, very attached to their father because he really loved them a lot when he brought them up. They both are married. They are with their families. So they're in good hands. So thank you very much, everyone, for your condolences and for your kind words. Francis, so sorry you had to deal with nutcases. Absolutely. They were actually, they were saying, I reject your statement. So I said, why do I care you reject or not? I have a situation at my home that I need to take care of. And this is the important thing. What I felt was the indifference of the persons who sent such messages. I still do not believe that these folks are stupid or they are silly. I just feel that they have a belief. With their proper intelligence and their IQ, they have a belief. They believe there is no SARS-CoV-2 or there is this is a big, some conspiracy going on. And so they have, according to that belief, they have their reaction. So for the whole year, I have actually kind of worked with it, but sometimes it just becomes too much. So I have learned that as things have become more serious, we are near the end of pandemic, but we are still this vaccine business and then the ivermectin suppression. And I feel that we are still on a bumpy ride. So I have stopped giving time to such folks. So I just remove them. Okay, so may not be the best way to deal with them, but I remove them. Absolutely. It's Stockholm's, yes. Okay, so thank you very much. So what do we talk about? Thank you very much, Margaret. They are frightened. Yes. There is, I don't dismiss folks by just simply saying, well, they're stupid. And then I know that there is, in my whole 1 year, in all of my YouTube comments, there is one time when I lost it a few days ago and I called someone an idiot, but I have never ever called anyone any names. So, because I don't think that that is what is the situation. It's not that people are idiots or silly. They're trying to figure out how to cope with this in their way, and this is their way. Okay, so how are things? How is Good Friday going? Thank you very much, Skyfrog, for your condolences. Thank you. Hope everyone stays safe and everyone is happy and relaxed. I do want to do this Qigong today. If Injan can join us, I think I want to do that. Let's start relaxing and doing something different as well. It would be good. So, so Nancy Camp says, what is Qigong? I think it is a kind of a relaxing exercise. And so once we have Injan with us, he would teach us more. And hopefully then we can switch to Zoom and we would do it over there. So is Injan here? So Coco Bean says, hi, Dr. Bean, Coco Bean here. I want to say you're terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. Good evening, Siddhartha. So Siddhartha, maybe next week we present your site and your links. Tomorrow I'm going to take an off. So they believe the pink unicorn exists. Free float the questions tonight. Yes. So please float any questions, float them away. M. Gregory says that Mayor of New York City says we're nearing the end of pandemic. We should be nearing the end of pandemic. Ideally, if they had opened up the ivermectin, we would have reached that end even faster. The SARS-CoV-2 or the COVID should have become a nuisance. Hey, I might get some sore throat with this thing type of a disease if the ivermectin type prophylaxis were allowed openly. So that's just unfortunate that we are in this state. Elk says, hi, Wild Bean is here. Dr. Bean, is it possible that vaccine efficacy depends more on adjuvants used rather than vaccine mechanism itself? Adjuvants are very important to trigger the immune system and kind of bother it to react more. But the vaccine's own antigen production against a specific type of antigen for the virus is very important. So let's say if we gave a vaccine without the antigen, let's say spike protein, and just the adjuvants would definitely cause an inflammatory reaction, but they would not help produce the immune system any antigen because there is no antigen to work against. Doug has said, so Doug, if you are in the US, go to, let me share this. So if you go to, I'm going to type it up in front of you just so that you can see it, flccc.net. It goes to COVID-19 critical care, and here on their main page, just under this button that says donate to support our mission, here it says how to get ivermectin. So if you click on that, there is a list of doctors in the US that offer ivermectin, and then what states. For example, Dr. Ilyeta Ek all over the US, Dr. Jim Meehan all over the US, and so on. Dr. Syed Haider, 32 states, and he continues to add more states to his site. Text2MD is excellent as well. So this is one list. I think this is mostly for the US. But if you wanted to see for outside of the US, this is existence.com. They have been with Dr. Bean for us for a long time as well, and occasionally comment on the videos as well. He has, or she has, or they have a list of various countries and the doctors and the phone numbers and contacts who offer ivermectin. So please use this. and then we'll go. So Injan is here. Injan, welcome. I'm not on YouTube, don't have account, but I'm on Facebook live feed. Can anyone tell Dr. Bean that I'm on Facebook only? That is totally fine. Injan, I actually see you. Injan, the link to Zoom is in the description on the Facebook as well. So when you would join, I would make you a co-host, and then you can help us with that. But see if you can see the link. It's auto-correcting. Yeah, possibly. All right. So that is one question down. More questions. Eric Dog says, your family sounds like my family. Nobody listens to anybody bad, but sorry to hear unless. So my family has all these 3 tiers. There is one group that says this is not a virus. There is no treatment needed, no mask needed, and just do whatever you want. And unfortunately, this one person was from that group. Again, I would not wish it on anyone who wears a mask or not wears a mask. It is not a good way to go. So I'm not saying it in this way that because he was from that group, but he belonged to that belief. Then there are folks who understand that there is a SARS-CoV-2, but they don't believe in ivermectins and hydroxy. They think that we are just fringe folks. And then there are folks who have developed a little bit more trust on me, and they have been believing the things that I've been saying, and they're doing prophylaxis with me. Interestingly, more than my family, my friends are more with me on the prophylaxis and these things, but a part of my family is as well. Johnny Assassina says Dr. Fauci is releasing his own ivermectin toothpaste, has a logo of Mr. Ed the Horse on it. I just saw a question here and it scrolled by. So just 1 second. So Sepal Steve says, just read the cyclosporine is very effective against COVID. Have you heard about this? No, but that would be very, very interesting if cyclosporine does that too. So Fishtail says, sorry for your loss. Do you take a full dosage of ivermectin every week or half dosage? I take full. For example, I took mine yesterday. So I take one full dose, and for me, I've calculated that to be about 12 milligram. So I take 12 milligram every week. There was one gap when I had shared my ivermectin with someone. So fortunately, one of the cool beans had more ivermectin for me, and so I've started again. Violet says, do young children produce more melatonin than adults? That is a very good question. They definitely sleep more than adults. So melatonin has something to do with the sleep cycles and the measurement of the light, and then deciding when to go to sleep, and then production of melatonin. I would suspect that young children do those, that excrete more, but I do not have a scientific evidence for this. I'll have to search for it. Elk says, why these doctors are not afraid to prescribe ivermectin, and most of the other doctors are. So I cannot comment on the individuals here, that what was their own motivation. So I cannot generalize and kind of say why they decided it. If I speculate, I would think that one, they're part of FLCCC. So because of being an organization, they feel that if somebody challenges them, they at least know that here is an organization and we are part of it, and we have these studies and we have a proof to show, and so it is the right thing to do, and they have a backing to show that right thing. So I think that is why some of them are able to do it. Of course, they themselves have to be convinced first, otherwise they would not do it. And then they needed support and more evidence and more, and that is what FLCCC's platform is. Then there are folks who are not themselves convinced. I have mentioned that some of my doctor friends, very, very good doctors friends, When I talk about ivermectin, I say, hey, you know that we have solutions. And they say, oh, wow, what solutions? And if I say ivermectin, as soon as I say ivermectin, there is a smirk on their face that, oh man, this guy is this guy is a nutcase as well. So then there are such folks too. So I think the second group is those who themselves don't believe in it. And then third group is those that are afraid of liability, that say, well, even if I do it, and the WHO, CDC, FDA, they say don't do it, and if something goes wrong, now I will become liable for this. So I think it is somewhere in this spectrum, and there may be more reasons. This is what I can think of. So Shinji Speaks says, any recommendation for ivermectin brand? I do not know. This is something that I have been asking the cool beans from India to kind of vouch for some of those brands. Because I'm not from India and I do not know those brands either, it becomes difficult for me to stand up for that. At the same time, I wanted to apologize to my Indian cool beans that because of me, sometimes India gets a little bit of insults as well. My apologies for that. So those folks who were upset with me this morning that I said that the uncle passed away because of COVID, some of them were then kind of you thinking I'm from India, were kind of insulting me in that way. That did you buy your degree from some bazaar in Mumbai and stuff like that. So my apologies to my friends from India. This is a collateral damage, and I hope you don't mind. So JTJ says, I don't think the brand of ivermectin matters. Ordering ivermectin from India is fine. Thank you, JTJ. Jenna, hopefully you are doing well. And then we have M. St. Clair. There are some folks who are just very, very, very upset. Valerie says, Dr. Mubin, what turns off the messenger RNA so it doesn't produce spike proteins forever? Very, very good question. And we have, there is a video I have done. I would explain it now as well, but there is a video as well where I did this in detail. And the video's title is, will our cells make spike proteins forever? So watch that too, where I have gone in much more depth. But let me explain a part of that here. So if I go here and let's say this is a cell. And in this cell, a messenger RNA has appeared. And now know that messenger RNA are produced in the cell all the time. Usually what happens is when a cell has to do some function, imagine this, that cell is a limited space and it has to do tons of functions. It has to do a lot of things. And it has a very interesting way of working in this limited space. And that is, it continues to build things. So let's say it's going to build, let's say the cell wants to call another cell. What it will do is it would build a factory that would make the calling molecules, let's say cytokines. Then it would release them and let the other cells know about this. Then it would demolish this factory when it is done. And so the function of cytokines will go away. Similarly, if there is another message to the cell, we know that there can be chemical messages to the cell or neurological messages to the cell, or there can be local messages, for example, one cell sending inflammatory cytokines or other messages, local messages. Even the cell has its own internal messengers as well. For example, if a cell's energy goes down, it tries to figure out internally that can I survive or not? If not, it would commit suicide. Or if a cell is under stress, for example, let's say you're squishing a cell and it is under stress, then its own cytoskeleton would tell it that, hey, kill yourself, you are under too much stress. Or if a cell is infected by a virus, then the cell can tell itself to kill itself. So cells have a lots of functions to do. And to do those functions in this limited space and with the limited resources, what they are used to do is they make factories, they use them, then they demolish them. Because of this behavior of the cells are very much used to producing messenger RNA. So for example, let's say the cell need to produce interferon. What will happen is inside the DNA, the gene will open up that would help make messenger RNA for making interferons. That gene, when opens up, the messenger RNA would be formed. That messenger RNA would come out of the nucleus. It would go to ribosome, and ribosome would then use this messenger RNA, kind of a recipe, and make the interferons. Those interferons will then be released, and then this messenger RNA will be destroyed. And it can take anywhere from 8 hours to 12 days, 12 hours to 2 days, 3 days, so on. So the point of this part of the talk is that please realize that our cells are used to working with messenger RNAs all the time because they are produced from the nucleus, and they're used to demolishing and destroying them. So imagine every time you're cooking a meal, the recipe for the meal, maybe it is the same meal that you're going to cook today and tomorrow. Still, the recipe is built new, messenger RNA, brought to you. You use that to make the meal. Then the recipe is destroyed. And when you have to make the meal again, the recipe is brought to you once more. That is how the cell works. So cell is used to destroying messenger RNA all the time. It has RNases, it has exonucleases, it has endonucleases, various enzymes whose job is to shred nucleic material. Now, when the vaccine arrives and it provides a messenger RNA, or even when the virus arrives and provides a messenger RNA, this messenger RNA, in the case of virus SARS-CoV-2 and the vaccine, looks very much similar to our messenger RNA. This is why we call it positive sense messenger RNA, because it is exactly structured. So messenger RNA has a cap and a tail and a structure, which is just like a recipe book has a title and a left to right order and so on. So messenger RNA has an order. SARS-CoV-2 has the same order of its messenger RNA, and so do the vaccines. So this messenger RNA comes in, it is used up by the ribosome. We make up various proteins, and then RNases will destroy this messenger RNA within a few days. It can be a couple of days that it is fully destroyed. So for those couple of days, there would be spike proteins produced. Now, if you ask me the second question and say how much spike protein will be produced. So please remember, if it is a virus, that would produce spike proteins in a cell for as long as it can. Then it would go to the next cell and then make spike proteins there for as long as it can, and then it would just keep spreading. Vaccine cannot do that. But when vaccine enters a cell, we did that discussion in the other video, that cell usually have up to 10 million ribosomes. It is not necessary that all 10 million of the ribosomes would start working on the same one recipe and they all will become busy with making spikes. But if they all did become busy to make spike, there would be 10 million ribosomes making one spike each. They would take up to 8 hours to make one spike. So this is like you're cooking something and it would take you 8 hours to cook one meal. And this RNA is going to be attached to, let's say, 10 million ribosomes. Then there could be 10 million spikes produced. I'm taking the upper limit. It is not going to happen because the cell's messenger RNA, the ribosomes, the chefs are busy making many, many other things for the cell's function. They cannot all just become busy with making spike proteins. But I'm just taking upper limit and saying all of them are busy making spike proteins with this messenger RNA. So then they would make 10 million spike proteins in one day. And if the messenger RNA can live there for, let's say, 2 days, then every 8 hour, one set of spike proteins. So 10 million plus 10 million plus 10 million plus 10 million kind of a number. It would definitely be lesser than that because all ribosomes will not be working on that RNA. There will not be sufficient RNA to give it to every ribosome as well. So it would be way lesser, but That is how to look at it. So this spike protein would continue to be built for 2 days and then gone. Now, meanwhile, we also have shredders or endosomes that are going to be shredding and chopping up these spike proteins. This is like, somebody chopping up vegetables to cook. So these spike proteins will be chopped up, and then they would be shredded and they would be presented outside. So that is the kind of a cycle that happens inside the cell. So hopefully that answers that question. So John Rice, I highly recommend all pro ivermectin cool beans to tune into Dr. Corey's weekly Q&A podcast. It's every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern. Thank you very much. And yes, definitely, please do that. I'm going to be requesting him to join us once more. Dr. Tess Laurie has also, her team sent a note. Now that I have responded to them, I can share it with you. They sent a note that they are looking to conduct an ivermectin international conference, and they had asked me if I can be the chairman of that conference. So today I reached back and I said, yes, I would love to be. It will be my honor. So let's see, in another week or so, we'll have that conference as well. So Bambi says, so technically they are injecting man-made messenger RNA. My understanding is that once injected, it will be there forever. So no, and Bambi, I would really request if you can watch the other video that I did, and let me explain it. Even when it is a man-made RNA, the structure of the RNA has to comply with the cell's RNA structure. Otherwise, the RNA would not be even used. It would just be destroyed. So what happens is, if I remember that video, in there, I actually enjoyed it when I was drawing it. I had drawn something like this. So when you would see that video, you would kind of see it. I had drawn a structure like this, that there is this RNA, there is a side of the RNA that is the head side, and it has a cap on it. It actually has a cap. Then there is a platform for the enzymes to stand on to work on the RNA. Then there is the RNA genetic material itself. Then there is another platform for the RNA to kind of, again, for the enzymes to stand on it. And then there is a tail end, we call it poly A tail. And I remember I had made it like this, A, many A's. So this is the tail. And so let's say here is the little RNA. And this is positive sense RNA. That means 5' end on this side and 3' end on this side. Now, if this is the structure of the RNA for our cell, any RNA that you send in from outside will have to have the same structure to be able to function with our ribosome, because we need the ribosomes to, first of all, they're going to bind with the cap. They're going to, for a ribosome, this is just like a sewing machine. If you're going to sew something, you need to have a needle threaded, and you need to have another thread underneath, and then you have to put the cloth at a specific area, and then you have to rotate it. Similarly, when the ribosome, imagine if the ribosome is a sewing machine, the ribosome needs a very specific structure of RNA to work with. It will not just willy-nilly pick up any genetic material and start working on it. So there has to be head area. Ribosome has a, I should have made it the other way around, the flipped around, but let's just go from right to left now that I've made it this way. So let's say here is a ribosome, that's chef that I've been making for my whole 1 year. And let's say here, this is an area of this chef where it will connect with this head side of the messenger RNA. And if it does not find a messenger RNA that does not comply with the structure formula, then it cannot actually bind with it. Once it can bind with the head side here, Then it would pull the RNA through it, and the head side would emerge on this side, and then the rest of the RNA is going to be here, and then the tail will be here. So when the RNA is passing through the ribosome, now ribosome is making the protein from it. And then when the tail appears, that is when it knows that, all right, this is the end of it, and it would liberate or free that RNA from its sewing machine. This is like taking the cloth out of the sewing machine. So this structure is very, very particular. And so you cannot just send in some RNA that would not comply with this, number one. Number two, once the RNA has been worked on, there are enzymes, these are called RNases, and in them there are endonucleases, and there are exonucleases. Endonuclease mean an enzyme that can bite a genetic material thingy in the middle. So imagine this is a Luffy here, and the Luffy would come in and don't show this picture to Luffy. He will become all upset that, hey, I'm not like this. So let's say this is Luffy, and the Luffy is going to bite the RNA material in the center. If that is the case, so we should give him a tail as well. So if that is the case, this is called an endonuclease. It works with the middle of the nuclear material and destroys it. And then there are exonucleases as well that can work on the sides of the nuclear material and destroys them. So these, Luffy looks more like a mouse to me in this diagram. So these nucleases or RNases would attack the RNA that has come out of the ribosome and destroy them within a couple of days. So because of that, Bambi, it is very difficult for an RNase piece from outside to enter our cell and to survive there forever. It cannot even survive more than 2 days. So that is, our cells, our body is very, very particular about its control. It's not a trash can where you just throw something and that just is going to sit there forever. It is very, very specific for how it works with external things. Roxanne says, Luffy. Yeah, so that he actually looks like a. Maybe I should make. Sorry, don't show this to Luffy. He's going to meow more. So I wanted to give him ears as well. I have to learn how to draw Luffy. Maybe I should do this, and then now he looks totally like a mouse. Oh well, sorry. So endonuclease in the middle, exonuclease outside. All right, so let's see more questions. Doug says Luffy variant. Yes, that's it. Doug says SARS-CoV-2 can cause thrombosis without viremia. I can think of a mechanism that can happen, although it would be a very difficult mechanism. But let's think if we can produce that. So let's do this. Thrombosis without viremia. So basic mechanism that you're looking for is, can we damage the inside surfaces of the blood vessels without actually bringing a virus inside the blood vessel? That is one. Damage the endothelium. The second is that you're saying, can we activate platelets without coming in contact with the virus? So the possibility that is easier to produce will be to bring in cytokines and to bring in antibodies. Antibodies can do a lot of damage. For example, and this is what is happening, that some of the vaccines may be producing antibodies that can go into the blood vessel wall, and then they are kind of attaching to the platelet. So let me clean it up. They are attaching to the platelet, and then the platelets start aggregating. So that is one possibility. So let's say SARS-CoV-2 produces enough antibodies that can go in the blood and then cause attach to platelet and then do it. It is not something that is very well documented, but I'm making up a mechanism to understand without viremia, without virus in the blood, can we cause blood clotting? So this would be one mechanism, send in some antibodies. Another mechanism will be send in some cytokines. How would a cytokine cause thrombosis? Let's say the cytokine goes in and causes the cells, endothelial cells, to become active. Those activated endothelial cells would then start catching platelets and aggregation would start. Another mechanism will be to send in cytokines that were, or inflammatory cells, messengers that cause endothelial, not just activation, but damage. That would start clotting. Then another possibility is that virus is actually sitting outside the blood vessel. And then from here, it is the inflammatory fight that is going on. It is producing cytokines and inflammatory products and breakdown products that are going here and settling here, which then becomes a target for immune cells, and that starts damaging the blood vessels. Or you directly start working with the platelet activating factor 4 or platelet factor 4, and that can cause clotting. So without viremia, you can cause clotting. But majority of the time, what we have seen is it is the SARS-CoV-2 working with the endothelium and causing the damage, which then initiates the clotting. This is a very interesting question. Selva Kumar says, hi, Dr. Bean. I may have missed. What is China's opinion on ivermectin? Selva, I do not know. But I can tell you this, that in the beginning of pandemic, when I used to call my friends in Pakistan, they would say that all the factories in Pakistan are busy making hydroxychloroquine and exporting to China. They said, we are short on hydroxy in Pakistan because all of it is going to China. So I haven't asked about ivermectin, but this is what I remember about hydroxy. Colin Hamel says, question, I left another link under this morning show that gives you a choice of 5 animators. I'll be speaking to one on Thursday about price. If it cheaps enough, I'll pay for it. Question, is that okay? But absolutely okay, and we would work on it together. Thank you so much. I have had a tinier chance since the morning to look at the comments, and saw some comments that they were a little bit more aggressive. So I just let the phone be on the side. But thank you very much, Colin. And yes, that is totally good. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now let's see more questions. So Elk says, major human errors in the messenger RNA vaccine manufacturing process, are those even possible? So again, from the point of view of testing a vaccine, trialing it, I would say that they may have made errors before, and then they tested them and they corrected them. But if we just wanted to understand what errors could be made, the errors are of this kind. So let's see. Let's say there is a spike protein RNA. Here is the RNA for spike protein. Imagine this is in our books. Imagine this is a page. And we want to, and this page is out of the whole book. Imagine the whole virus's RNA or the genetic material is the whole book. And we want to rip out of it just the spike protein part. So that means out of the whole book, we just want this one page. So let's say this is the remainder of the book. And here is the rest of the book and rest of the pages and blah. But we are interested in this page and we want to get that page out. So it is possible that when you are taking this genetic material, you don't take the exact material that is needed, which would help produce the spike protein correctly. Instead, you take a material piece that is incorrectly selected. And so the spike protein that would be formed, either there'll be nothing formed because material is not correct, or the recipe is not full, or the recipe is kind of weird. So that is one kind of a mistake. The other mistake could be that instead of just taking the spike protein, we have taken more pieces from the side. The other mistake could be that what we do is we take this RNA and then we change some of the amino acids on this to kind of make them a little bit more durable, so they're not destroyed that fast. So maybe that replacement of the amino acids is not done correctly, and so the RNA is useless, garbage, trash. Then we have to add a head to it. We have to add a tail to it. So we have to add a cap region and a tail region. Let's say they are not correctly produced. That is another error. Then the vaccine has to be put together with a lipid nanoparticle. Imagine that nanoparticle is not manufactured correctly, or it doesn't have the right potency, or it cannot have the RNA in it. And the RNA is kind of sticking out of the particle, and just as you inject it, it just goes into the tissue, and the immune cell pick up that RNA, just destroy it. So it doesn't get a chance to go into the cell and do something. Then let's say there is some impurities in here which act as adjuvants, and now we have some incorrect thing that has gone in. But all of this should be tested outside of animals and humans in cells inside the petri dishes in vitro. So first this will be in computers, then it would be tested in cells and seen that what kind of antibodies are being produced, are they even being produced or not, or sorry, what kind of antigens are being produced. So the cell will be given this messenger RNA, see what it does. Then they would see if there are any impurities. They would put this vaccine with B cells and T cells and macrophages and see how do they react to it. Then they would take it to an animal, then they would take it to human, and so on. So there are many chances of error, but this is the usual process of quality assurance. And I'm kind of simplifying. I'm sure that they have better than this. Pasi is here. I've seen Pasi after a long time. Hey, Pasi, how are you? Pasi, how are you? I have been missing you. Japan, I have been missing as well. Japan has not been here for some days. So Pasi, welcome. Chris says, what if anti-ACE2 antibodies produced by response to anti-ACE2 antibodies vaccine attack other ACE2 based molecules which are naturally produced by the body? Is this not autoimmunity side effect of the vaccine? Absolutely. If this is the mechanism, then yes. But this is not what happens, because the antigen that is being produced is not against ACE2. Antigen is a spike protein itself, which actually likes to bind with ACE2. So the antigen or the vaccine, when given, and when it produces the spike protein, the antibody is against the spike, not about the ACE at all. So there is no question of ACE binding in this whole scenario. Anisa Abshir says, Dr. Mubin, my question is not related to COVID-19. Okay. I'll see if I can answer it. I'll try to. Colin says, we, China and Portugal, not the biggest IVM producers for years. I did not know. I have to check this up. Anisa says, do you record any USMLE step to CK lectures? Yes. So before the pandemic, my primary work, Anisa, was to produce medical lectures for nursing students, medical students, for USMLE students. So there is a ton of lectures, I think 600-700 lectures on the site for them. But then during the pandemic, my primary work has been for all of us here. After the pandemic, I'll go back to do that. But I think there is a part, I think, and it would really depend upon the cool beans as well. I think I'm going to be dedicating 2 to 3 days every week to talk about general health things with cool beans. For example, diabetes, hypertension, aging, other health-related things. Especially, I think that for diabetes, there is so much, just like with the SARS-CoV-2, there is so much research. For diabetes, there is so much research as well. If Nick was here, he would talk about the free fatty acids. There are people who feel that they can reverse diabetes. I want to go through those studies and researches as we did with COVID and kind of share them with the cool beans. So it would really depend upon the engagement afterwards. But to your question, yes, I used to make them a little bit less nowadays. We will get back on them, but we would also continue to expand in the general population area, more health coverage. Barbara says, I would love that too. Thank you, Barbara. I hope you're talking about the, the plan. Okay, so Ruby's are right. Barcelona also plays host to the biggest sex and alternate lifestyle conference on the planet. Wow, I did not know that. Ali G says, pharmaceutical companies should sit together to develop something really effective and with less side effects. Ali G, I definitely think that if they were sincere towards public, towards people, and not sincere towards earning, then they would come up with many solutions and fast compared to solutions that are waiting. And I can understand. So think about these companies. I'm a tiny company, Dr. Bean, but every year I have to grow and I have to show that we grew. And the only way to grow is to serve more. So these bigger companies have a lots of revenue they generate, and every year they have to show that we generated even more revenue. And what they're doing is they have developed tactics to generate revenue. Some of those tactics are not on the side of people, and that is why they are doing what they're doing. So expecting from them to come up with these things is actually a good expectation, but it may not align with their goals. I think that when a pharma company would actually do something humanitarian, there would be some purpose behind that, or they may have been feeling that if we've earned so much that we should go give something back as well. So this is why I feel that pharma may not be the right platform. Jenna, my IVIG infusion are 18,000 for 1 unit. I get 3 units each 4 weeks. My insurance is charged from pharmaceutical company. They are robbing us. Yeah, the whole structure is very. So how about getting ready for some qigong? I do not even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So we'll ask InGen. But do you think that we should switch to Zoom now? Simple Meerkat says, Pharma do something for humanity. That's a good one. It is an unfortunate situation. And I think to an extent, my investors expect from me to grow the company every year. And if I don't do it, I'm scrambling to say, how do I grow it? So imagine those bigger companies and their investors and their pressure on them to say, get the stock prices up, grow the revenue, bring in more customers. So they have learned tactics. Okay, so InGen is there. InGen, do you have the Zoom link? Did you find it in the description? It is even in the Facebook. InGen, it should be there, but let me put it here as well, just so that you have ready access to it. So let me put it out. Staple Steve says no Zoom for me. Sorry to see that, Steve. We're gonna miss you. I just put the link out. The Zoom is not started yet. I would stop this and then start Zoom. So it might take a few minutes after stopping this. But this is the link. So the link is present in the description as well. I just put the link here as well. So Doug says more questions to answer. Do you want to talk more? Mark says I don't Facebook either. So, and no worries, Mark. I just put the description link here. It is in the YouTube videos description as well. I just placed it here too. Zigzag says, Dr. Bean, any adverse reaction similar to other AstraZeneca with Novavax? Will they be releasing it early because the recall of the other vaccines? So let me give you the answer in two ways. Number one, it seems to me when I look at Johnson & Johnson and their little blurb that, hey, we may be causing clotting, it seems to me that adenovirus vaccines are known from the past to be able to cause clotting. So that is one. Secondly, it does seem to me that even messenger RNA-based vaccines may cause it, and there is data out there that needs to be surfaced. Two. Third is the Novavax itself, and they haven't done that yet. I would suspect, because they also have an adjuvant with them, I would suspect that they may have something like that too, and we need to know more. And once again, I always attach this message with this type of a statement. I am on daily basis trying to get myself scheduled for the vaccine. So with these messages, concerns at their place, I am still trying to get my vaccine. And I have no idea what would happen, but I'm trying to get the vaccine. George Smooth says, I think I have the best avatar. Yes, you do. You have the ivermectin man. It actually looks very good. When I was drawing it, I was laughing because his eyes look all crossed and he doesn't have a nose and he's standing like this. So that is so funny. Thank you very much for showing it. With that eye, he looked very egotistic as well, that, hey, I. So Samina says pregnancy and COVID vaccine, please. So Samina, I actually owe you this topic. So I'm going to just give you just sufficient that I heard, and that was from Israel, that they have been giving vaccine to pregnant women. Although there are also reports of abortions triggered by the vaccine. Now, what is rumor and what is true is something I do not know yet. So please wait for a few days that I can do some research and then say it. But these are the statements that I have heard. So I actually agree with this. Alex, you're talking about Covaxin. Covaxin inactivated virus, I like it. France says, ivermectin seems like he means business. Yes, he's standing there and saying, okay, I'm going to do some harm or something like that. Okay, so let's see if InGen has gotten the link. InGen, you good? Pasi is here. Pasi has a question. How long does SARS-CoV-2 stay viable in the water from feces ending in water, heat evaporating in the sky, resulting in infecting people 3 days like on surfaces or longer cause it's in fluid? So it can stay viable for a very long time in water. So the only way it would become non-viable is if the water has some sort of toxic material that gets into it, or it pulls the material out of the SARS-CoV-2. Otherwise, it would live for days and days and weeks on water. Water is its environment. It loves water. Mark says you won't get azimobene. Yes, so far AZ is not approved here. So so Samina says, please send the link. I hope, Samina, you're talking about the Zoom. InGen says, I got the link. Excellent. So I'm going to put the link here once more. You are very welcome, Pasi. I'm going to put the link here once more. Please grab the link. I'm going to then hang up and go and start the Zoom. And just to be on the same page, it's not that the people are just bad towards me. I was um, looking at Dr. Laurie's video, and I had to clean up so many comments that were derogatory, insulting, directed at Dr. Laurie, and I had to go through them and keep removing them. So I think people are equal opportunity insulting folks as well, that they would insult anyone they like. Um, so let's see one more question and then we drop out of here. Skyfrog says, does taking ACE inhibitors for blood pressure affect the virus and or vaccine? That was a very, very important question that in the beginning of the pandemic, we kept trying to figure it out, that will the ACE inhibitors, would they help somehow from protection? So a couple of things in there. Number one, ACE inhibitors, or more than the ACE receptor blocker, ARBs, are mostly directed to ACE1 receptors instead of ACE2. But even if they have some interaction with ACE2, the Hypertension Society had come out and said that it seems like they do not do any adverse or anything better. And their recommendation was that if you're already taking it, you are good, keep taking it. If you are not taking it, do not start it to think that this would protect. That was their statement. And there were some studies that said that it actually can help. So I think even till now, what my feeling is, it's neutral. It doesn't really do much. Okay, so whoever is not going to be on Zoom and going to take off, like we had Staple Steve, happy Good Friday, happy Easter, see you on Monday. I'll take an off tomorrow. And for anyone who's going to join us on Zoom, I'm going to take off from here and we'll go to Zoom. There's one more question here from Kevin. Dr. Bean, can you tell me how long COVID remains viable on tobacco or hemp? I cannot, because I haven't read this in any study. But what I can tell you is this: any surface that pulls water, for example, the paper or such surfaces, they would make it less viable fast because they would drain the water out of it, they would dry it out. And when it is dried out, its RNA becomes all broken up and it is not viable. And with that, I also wanted to say thank you to Nina. I have gotten this beautiful mask or masks from Nina, plus some very beautiful, so I'm going to cover her address and show you this here. So she drew some nice cool beans as well. So Nina, thank you very much for that. There is another cool bean who sent me a message today that they will be sending me some support system for the bag. So thank you very much for that as well. I'm so grateful for all this love. So Nina, thank you very much. And so should we then break for now from here and go to Zoom? So my usual message, please like, subscribe, and share. If you will not subscribe or share, then just like it. And then there are 3 links in the description as well. If you like, you can buy me coffees. If you like, you can be my patron. Or if you like to support this work in general, you can do that as well. So thank you very much and see you in a few minutes on Zoom. Bye-bye.